more children are killed by a bullet than any other cause of death. The United States of America. What the hell are we doing? What are we doing? We got a candidate saying, promised the NRA, don't worry, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything.
Joining us now is Jen Psaki, former White House press secretary, host of Inside with Jen Psaki on MSNBC. We don't mention the former White House press secretary every time, but you were White House press secretary for that guy. And I'm looking at that guy and I'm thinking, why hasn't he been doing these all the time? And by all the time, I don't know, certainly 4, 5, 6 times a year, and this year maybe even more.
Well, I mean, there's a logistical truth and then there's a news truth, right? The news truth is today, a lot of the questions he was asked, as he should have been asked, about the status of his campaign as an intention to stay in. There were a lot of questions about that. There were also a lot of good, substantive, thoughtful foreign policy questions.
They were all good foreign policy.
They were very good. You know, when I was in the White House briefing room, I was never nervous about questions from TV or wire. I mean, they asked good questions. When I saw someone like David Sanger in the room, I thought,
foreign policy expert.
It's going to be deep and thoughtful. But every press conference is not that. Every press conference is not following a NATO summit where there's a lot to talk about. And it wasn't all about foreign policy.
Right.
The other factor is that President Biden loves a lot of prep. And that's important because it means that when you're planning the White House schedule and he's going to do a press conference, you have to plan for a lot of prep. Now, I don't think they had the luxury of that over the last couple of days because he was leading the NATO summit. But you factor that in, and I know that sounds funny. I'm actually a believer that he is better when he does not have as much prep. And oftentimes, when I was working for him, that came around foreign policy, bilateral meetings, or events where you didn't have the luxury. You know, you had 15 minutes and that was what it was. And it means that he's less likely to get mired in, I need every detail of every infrastructure project. He just speaks from his 50 years of knowledge of a range of these issues and goes into a level of detail about NATO and what's happening in the Middle East and all of the topics that he covered tonight. So the press conference, not that you're suggesting this, was imperfect. He had some flub moments, no question. People will analyze those. But what people also saw is kind of his love of and his expertise of national security and foreign policy issues that is part of why Barack Obama picked him. And part of why the country has had confidence in him.
I think with the two presidential candidates, it's now a tie on getting names wrong. Trump has called Hillary Clinton Barack Obama, and so they both do it, and I do it. So, but on the substance of what we saw there, this is his format. This is the best kind of format I've seen him in. And the fact that he has a range of issues coming up, and he's the one who brought up the guns. It's why I showed that. Guns, no one asked a question about guns.
That's right.
He made it relevant. It wasn't like a disjointed point, and it was so quick and it was so strong. And it's one of those things that just made me say, this is the version that should be out there more often.
Well, that's also an issue. Gun violence and addressing gun violence, I mean, all the way back to the 90s, is an issue that he has long been incredibly passionate about. It's one he cares deeply about. He's not a good poker face player. You know what he cares deeply about, what drives him, what excites him, and you saw some of that in the press conference.
Campaign under pressure, you've been there, but you've never been under this much pressure in a campaign. Joe Biden says keep going forward. How does the campaign keep going forward under this kind of pressure?
Well, the group of people I've been certainly thinking about is the campaign staff, because a lot of them.
That's who I'm asking about.
I know. I mean, and I think it's important for people to understand. 90% plus of them don't really know exactly where this is headed or what's happening. And they joined this campaign because they believe in Joe Biden, and they also believe in defeating Donald Trump and saving our democracy. They're doing it for noble, the right, good reasons. It's a really hard grind when you're under pressure and under target, especially from your own party. It's really difficult. But what you have to do to keep going is just putting one foot in front of the other. That's incumbent upon leadership to keep driving them forward. I mean, Quentin Fowkes, I know you've had him on. I've had him on. Someone like him has a really hard job. You're doing your job. You're also keeping the morale of the team up. And you're trying to keep making the case externally, but also internally. And you have to have the facts to back it up, right? Are the delegates still with you? Are you still raising money? What does the polling say? Campaign staff is also smart. but it's about putting one foot in front of the other and taking it one day at a time.
Jen Psaki, thank you very much for joining us on this important night.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.